National Institutes of Health cuts funds to China's Wuhan Institute of Virology. U.S. to send top officials to China as it moves on from balloon incident. Xi's spymaster leads U.S. corporate clampdown. China's first-tier real estate market is in a comprehensive decline.
The National Institutes of Health, or NIH, has quietly deleted the Wuhan Institute of Virology from its list of animal testing laboratories using funds from American taxpayers. The Wuhan-based lab has been under scrutiny regarding its potential involvement in the origins of COVID-19. Senator Joni Ernst said, China's state-run Wuhan Institute of Virology, which was known to be unsafe, should never have received U.S. support for its dangerous experiments on bat coronaviruses. Justin Goodman, Senior Vice President for Advocacy at the White Coat Waste Project, praised the decision. The organization had actively worked to uncover the extent of U.S. funding allocated to the Wuhan lab. Goodman told the Washington Times, taxpayers shouldn't be forced to fund a foreign lab run by an adversarial nation that wasted money, tortured animals, and engineered superviruses in dangerous gain-of-function experiments that violated the law and likely caused COVID. Goodman noted that this project would continue its work to ensure this Chinese Communist Party-run animal lab, and others like it, never receive another red cent of taxpayers' money. The Wuhan Institute of Virology received approximately $600,000 from NIH money via EcoHealth, a New York-based firm. The NIH has faced increasing public criticism for providing financial support to the Wuhan lab, and for insufficiently monitoring taxpayers' dollars. In January, the Office of the Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services released a report on the NIH. It concluded that it needed to have effectively supervised or taken prompt action in response to the funding provided for bat coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology through EcoHealth. The list of animal testing laboratories approved by the NIH includes 1,115 U.S. and 342 foreign facilities. In addition, 27 Chinese labs are still on the NIH-approved list. On April 17th, Senator Marco Rubio, a ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, released a 328-page report on the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. The report found more evidence to support the hypothesis that the virus likely escaped from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. Rubio accused the Chinese regime of perpetuating international deception by promoting the theory that the virus originated in a wet market in Wuhan. The White House is reportedly trying to resume dialogue with China by sending several top officials to its capital in the coming months. Claiming input from multiple U.S. officials, CNN said the potential visits should be made by Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen, Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, and Climate Envoy John Kerry. The visits won't take place in the coming weeks, as President Joe Biden is at the G7 meeting, and officials are focusing on the debt ceiling crisis. The talks are still progressing, and there is no definite decision yet on who will travel to China first. According to the sources, the State Department wanted Blinken to initiate the visit, but others expected him to go after Raimondo and Yellen. An unnamed official said, "The reality is that China has a vote." The Secretary of State was already about to join a flight to China earlier this year, but the Chinese spy balloon saga had shattered that plan. It was reported earlier this month that the White House is ready to move on from the unfortunate incident. At the time, a U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said, "We're seeking now to move beyond that and re-establish just a standard, normal channel of communications." During his cancelled trip, Blinken was expected to address a broad array of issues with Chinese counterparts, such as the Ukraine war, the supply of fentanyl precursor chemicals from the country, frictions over Taiwan, and arbitrary detentions of Americans. Officials told CNN such topics would resume if he were to travel to Beijing again. Prior to the cancelled trip, a source told CNN that the department's special representative for hostage affairs informed families of Americans who were imprisoned in China that Blinken would raise the issue with Beijing. Reportedly, he would do even more than raise the names. However, the White House has also drawn criticism for its eagerness to forego the balloon incident so easily. Reuters reported on May 11th that it was holding back on sanctions against Beijing to avoid further tensions, a move which sources said was heading down the old way of allowing China to exert pressure on the US simply for unproductive dialogues.
According to the Wall Street Journal, it was not until an official considered a hard taskmaster took over that investigation into foreign consulting firms in China heightened. Sources told the publication that the person was State Secretary Minister Chen Yixin, a loyalist to Chinese President Xi Jinping, known among the Communist Party as a rigorous law and order implementer of his policy. The publication said the recent crackdown on American due diligence firms, including raids, questioning, and detention of Chinese personnel, began in 2020. However, it was insignificant until Chen was tapped when Xi decided the measures needed to be more demanding. Western business executives said at the time little punishment was implemented as companies evaded social surveys and other research into topics with high risks of triggering Beijing. Sources said Xi wanted to heighten the crackdown as the U.S. applied stricter sanctions on Chinese businesses and curbed the sale of advanced technologies to China, which they have been doing over the past several years. The journal noted that Chinese officials have not tried to reduce mounting concerns among companies about the recent clampdown. Earlier this year, economic officials were still rolling out the red carpet for investment from overseas. In March, China's new premier, Li Qiang, said at China Development Forum, "No matter how the international situation changes, China will unswervingly expand its opening up to the outside world." Western business leaders who have talked with Chinese officials said the country has switched to focus only on investment that would help its domestic industries. The journal cited Elon Musk's Tesla as an example, which has significantly boosted its EV ambitions. Recently, the WeChat account Zhifeiyu published an article saying that China's first-tier real estate market has declined comprehensively. As the wind turbine of China's real estate market, first-tier cities are considered the most resilient. However, in April, the transaction volume of China's real estate market, whether new or used, simultaneously decreased. As a result, the decline of Beijing's real estate market is bigger than anywhere else. The article pointed out second-hand housing online contracts in Beijing fell by 40.5% in April, while Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen dropped by 26%, 14.36%, and 24% respectively. The article analyzed that housing purchasing demand was previously suppressed due to the pandemic's impact. Moreover, the workers' income hasn't returned to how it was, and the unemployment rate of young people even hit a new high in 6 months. Therefore, in the second quarter, there was a phenomenon that the real estate market's transaction volume in hot cities was collectively weak. It's the main reason the real estate market of most second, third, and fourth-tier cities is in decline. The real estate market in first-tier cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen has also declined as their housing prices are already relatively high and only people from the middle class upwards can afford to buy houses in these cities. However, the middle class needs more confidence and expectations in buying homes in the unstable macro environment. On May 11th, the People's Bank of China released April financial data showing that the deposits and mortgages of people across China decreased. Although the amount of money deposited increased significantly in the first quarter of this year, in April alone, the household deposits fell by $171.2 billion. At the same time, the transaction volume of China's real estate market in April also fell sharply. Compared to March, the total transaction volume decreased by $16.49 billion, reflecting that the CPI consumption growth rate has hit a 26-month low and is approaching the critical point. According to the People's Bank of China, China's household loans fell by $34.4 billion in April, of which short-term loans declined by $17.9 billion and medium and long-term loans decreased by $16.49 billion. Under normal circumstances, short-term loans are mainly used to purchase cars, consumer goods, etc., while medium and long-term loans are for housing loans. There is only one reasonable explanation for the above phenomenon. The overall debt repayment scale is larger than the scale of the loans. Therefore, the cause of the decrease in people's deposits is not for consumption or investment, but for early repayment of loans. Behind the early repayment wave is the lack of confidence and expectations for the prospects of economic recovery. In addition, it is worth noting that the increase in the social financing scale in April was $174 billion, much lower than the expected $285 billion and much lower than the increase of $767.7 billion in March. The decline in social finance means although the money printing machines are still busy printing money, only a few people come to take it. Now, 93.3% of people coming to get money are state-owned, central, and urban investment enterprises. In other words, it is difficult for Chinese banks to lend money, reflecting that enterprises are unwilling to expand as their production is weak. The article said that after 3 years of being affected by the pandemic, many people's mentality has changed. They are no longer willing to spend all their money buying a house and bear a lifetime mortgage. Instead, more and more people tend to live in the moment to enjoy or pursue Buddhist life. At the end of the article, the author said under the combined influence of the peak population, the peak urbanization rate, the oversupply in most cities, the lack of expectations and confidence, as well as the change of mentality, estimates are that more of 90% of Chinese cities will have a relatively long period of time without increasing housing prices in the future.